to look at Vietnam. Maybe can you describe a little bit to the audience, like what type of opportunities and threats do you see in the Vietnamese marketplace?
From a GDP point of view, I think it was the only one of the few countries globally that expanded during this quarantine, during this COVID period. I think around, I can't remember the number, 4 to 5% growth rates in terms of e-commerce growth. Over the next 5 years, it's supposed to be the fastest growing market in Southeast Asia, clocking growth whatever indicator you look on digital commerce. I always look at digital commerce as a precursor to digital financial services.
Yeah.
So I think whatever indicator you look at, you will end up with a number of 40 to 50, right? And as you indicated in terms of payment volumes, right, going digital, so we as a country have a pretty, I would say, pretty robust 24/7 instant transfer platform. And we are clocking growths above 100% easily year on year.
Yeah.
And for Techcombank, we are the largest player in the 24/7 instant transfers in the market, right? So whether it's payment volumes, whether it's customer growth, right, or whether it's when like this month, if I look at day-on-day growth on our eKYC CASA acquisitions,
yeah,
right? Since we had a little bit of a further lockdown due to COVID, right? I can see that it's doubling, if not more, within the month. In fact, it's much more than that. So I think it's a very exciting market. It creates a very interesting dynamics for players operating in this market. There is not a lot of time to pontificate. You've got to be in the market. Whatever you're thinking, you need to be able to translate your ideas into action very, very rapidly, right? So, I mean, in other markets, in developed markets where I've earlier operated, I think the flexibility or the margin of error to take a little bit of time, to get your product right and get it out there was quite, the margin of error was quite low. You could live with it. In Vietnam, you can't. Either you're in the market and you get your ideas across to the market really fast, right? The customers are demanding it. And more importantly, the competition is moving extremely, extremely fast, right? So the moment you're not in, you're sliding back massively. I think I'll just add one more point, right? I think before I moved, right, I think I heard, you're moving from a developed country to a developing country, right? And what kind of innovation and what kind of digital would you be talking about? And I think it's amazing that I'm very confident in saying that I think whatever I've seen so far, I think we are moving into the new generations of technology, not just as Techcombank, but as an industry I can see, as a country I can see, the pace and the adoption of new modern infrastructures, modern engineering concepts is just incredible.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's kind of, there's this huge opportunity, I guess, also to leapfrog or even to switch a few generations of technologies and just go all in directly on the latest and greatest. Do you also see, next to, of course, an intensified competition and land grab, are there other, I would say, major threats you see that from the bank's point of view you should incorporate in your strategy?
I think, the market is very dynamic, right? So if you think about the number of players operating, whether it's, wallet players, whether it is consumer finance companies, I think there is a whole breadth of players in the market. However, the depth of anyone, and I mean anyone, right? I don't see that is there. So while there is threat of all, we can imagine the threat of so many different players in the market, right?
Yeah.
Very aggressive banks, very aggressive, digital subsidiaries, right? Very aggressive digital born native companies. However, I think the nature of the market is such that it is open still to all. But at the same time, there is no room for complacency, right? So if you are a traditional quote unquote bank, I mean, I'm not calling Techcombank traditional. I think it's the first place where I'm being pushed more than generally I push the organization, right? So if you think about that, I think the room for error for any of these players is extremely low.
Yeah, clear. So there's a threat like with the wallets, with consumer finance, but their offering is, I would say, more monoline. With a full service bank, you have a wider width, and if you can kind of compete with them with a wider set of capabilities and how you help enable people in their lives, clear. Okay.
So, I mean, I think the market structures are such that I think the monolines are there, the wallets are there. But again, I would say, and again, I'm speaking on behalf of others, I think they are still seeking the profitability, right? On the other hand, I think for a bank right now, it's the full service, right? And getting the digital component right, the digital engagement right, getting the personalization right. And for our strategy, I think it is very clear. We need to talk to each and every one as an individual, right? Not a number, not a segment, right? For us, it is very clear we are not here to, sell you products. For us, very clear that we are here to help you achieve your life objectives, your business objectives. Our vision itself is change banking, change lives.
Yeah.
Right. So our promise to the customers, as differentiated with many of the monoline attackers, is we are going to help you beyond your payments and CASA needs. We are going to help you grow your business. We are going to help you get your dream house in the most effective manner. And all our ecosystem partnerships, our corporate partnerships, I think that's how we are leveraging them to deliver that promise.
Yeah. So I guess then based on the opportunity, basically the strengths, the weakness, opportunity, threat, your SWOT analysis of the market, I think there's a clear, huge opportunity. The strength is you've got a wide set of services. You're one of the leading banks. If you combine that with digital, the overall strategy is let's go all in and execute extremely well in that battle, to stay relevant and become the preferred financial app.
I think it's very interesting that I don't have to spend even like an iota of my time convincing the board what we need to do, right? I think the boards and the management team, we have a pretty solid management team here, which are quite aligned on the need to go digital. I think for us, I think the real challenge now is to figure out how do we, figure out the holy cows and all the existing processes that have been in place and make sure that we as an engine can change them to create the right environment which encourages a digital culture, which encourages an engineering culture. So I think from day to day, making sure that you kill one stupid process a day, I think you've got to take small battle steps and small wins and get along. Now, beyond that, right, I think, to convince the board, right, I think since 2010, I've been probably spending a lot of my time with those issues. And I believe at the end of the day, nothing beats more than either the shareholders asking for it, or, the people personally understanding what's happening in the market. So and for most and many, right, they are not digital natives, they are not digital immigrants. Exactly. They're probably still not come into the digital field of things.
They know they need to go there, but how to go there and the best practices and stumbling through a few mistakes. Can you share a few perspectives there? Like what did you see? What do you see there? Like in an incumbent traditional organization, you are convinced you need to go, but then what are the things you're going to learn yourself while being in that journey?
Yeah, I think, the question is that are all your stakeholders within the bank, right, convinced on, everyone's convinced of where to get, right? But the how to get there, right? Yeah. And how a digital mindset, a digital thinking needs to be permeated across the organization, right, is always the challenge. Right. So historically, I think having an innovation team, an innovation lab, right, which is systematically working across, various elements of the various functions of the bank. And maybe sometimes the best place to start is the compliance and the legal teams, right? arm them with AI tools, arm the audit team with AI tools to find issues with the others, right? That accelerates things a lot. If the people in the business are afraid that the auditors are going to find a lot of issues because they're using the latest AI technologies, it moves really fast. However, at the end of the day, right, I think it is a lot about personal relationships, right? It is a lot about collective management, understanding of what is required, spending time on communicating that, spending time illustrating the pitfalls of the previous ways and making them very visible. Having operated in multiple operating environments of business, IT, design, right? I think my final conclusion is that none of the approaches, whether you say I create a digital factory, I create a separate entity, right, or whether I embed it within the business, do I have one team, or do I create within the product groups or etc. digital champions? I think it depends a lot on the maturity of the organization, right? I think starting with the centralized team, either at the bank level or at the division level, but a central entity, I think, is important before you distribute it. Everyone has to be digital. So that at what time can you distribute, I think, is a critical question. Now, the tension between, and I always tell my, counterparts and peers and friends in the bank that, hey, the tension between the product owner, the technology, and the design has to be there, right? If you guys are not at your necks during the day, and not having a beer in the evening, you guys are not doing your job, right? Because there's a natural tension between this. Now, I'm not a big believer of continuing to change the models to refine this, right? I think it is about systematically taking the issues that come up with each model, because each of these models have significant issues, right? Taking them head on when they arise, and as the leadership providing that cover to fix them. I think nothing beats the morale of the team by not fixing those issues, irrespective of the model that you are using. So I think I would just say that if you are not doing that, and sometimes I find myself why I have not been able to fix these issues, I think those are the times when I'm sleepless, and any CDO should be sleepless if you're not able to manage the dynamics on the ground for your team, irrespective of the model that you're using. Indeed. So we have a tribe, a business tribe inside DO, right? Yep. With very clear product owners, right, yep, that are responsible to build and to deliver the results. I think the KPIs are very important. There are, and those KPIs shadow the business KPIs, right? The business person is generally the sponsor of this, right? And we have all the chapters of design, risk, etc., sitting with these teams. Critical is co-location. Critical is aligning the KPIs. So very high percentage of any individual's KPIs are aligned with the program's business objectives. I cannot stress the importance of that. That has been one of the most important critical factors to get this right.
Can you tell me a little bit about your technology? You are one of the Backbase customers. You're using the Backbase engagement banking platform. Why do you consider a technology platform, and how do you kind of combine that also with your own UX skills and your CTO and your engineering skills? Can you talk a little bit about the different ingredients and the recipe you believe that will kind of drive to success?
Yeah. I think the fundamental belief that we have is that to win in this market, right, we need to have the best customer insights and the best way to engage with the customer, right? In addition, to do this, we need to do this at speed, in a flexible manner where we can change things, right? But most importantly, get things out really, really fast. Right, so that kind of influences our technology choices a lot, right? So if you want to be, going back to one-on-one strategy, I was a strategy consultant for a while, right? I think whatever is your core competency, you never outsource, right? So for us, it's very critical to build really solid design capabilities in-house.
In-house,
right?
Yeah.
Both for product map and then designing the experiences. So it's a heavy area that we are investing in. Probably we are already the biggest, design shop in Vietnam, right? And to my friends in Singapore, we're gonna compete with you very soon. We're gonna make it the best very soon. Yeah. So I think the design is critical, and that has to be in-house, right?
Yeah.
Second is I would say the platform, right? We need to have a platform that has a very modular, scalable architecture, right? It can integrate quite fast with various technologies. It allows us the flexibility if we bring in components from other solutions, etc., right? How fast it can integrate. And then finally, how many accelerators do we have that we don't have to build the capabilities, right? So I think just on a rough, note, I think architecture, flexibility, right? Speed to market, ability to integrate, and the speed to market includes the existing capabilities that come out of the box. But the front end for us, I think that we own. We are delivering that all by ourselves. Finally,
Yeah.
I think this also requires a very, very strong engineering processes, DevOps, CI/CD, right? So I think that's something we expect our partners to, be able to work with us, maybe push us, right, as we are moving into these modern engineering practices very, very rapidly on in-flight projects. I think the change banking components, I think there are three core areas that we are investing in. Data, digital, right, and talent, right? These are the three things. And digital involves the whole stack, right? The whole modern infrastructure, architecture, engineering practices, right?
Yeah.
Now, what do we mean by changing lives, right? If you still look at it, right, from a financial point of view, right, banks should be partners that enable your objectives and reduce your worries, right? If you look, in the research, any sort of research in any country, whether affluent, whether mass affluent, or the large population or the SME, right? I think their concerns are around, day-to-day spending, are around whether I have the capital to expand into the areas where I want to be in, right? Whether I will be able to pay my employees next month, right? So I think the problems that our customers face, right? There are very few people who are trying to address those problems. There are a lot of people trying to sell products, right? So for example, I mean, in Vietnam, another example that I would give is wealth management, right? Where the market is at right now, the amount of products available is quite limited, right? Yet people are looking for yield, for investment returns. And generally they end up with just getting advice from the next bloke, right? And that's generally not safe. So I think the mission that we are going and why digital helps is that we can create that personalized experience, right? Not just for the affluent, which we do using the human touch points, but for each and every individual, each and every SME, each and every micro SME. How do we create that interaction that doesn't feel that I am just here to sell a product? I am here to enable your business. And I think digital, powered by really, really smart use of data and analytics, right, is the only way to achieve that. Finally, ecosystems, right? So having the right partnerships that bring it all together.
So the first question here is, what do you believe are the right or good metrics or factors for measuring the digital journey transformation? Do you see any specific metrics that you think are impactful?
I think, at this point of time, I would say, two things, right? One is promoter scores, net promoter scores. I'm a total believer of them, right? A large part of digital is to get the right experiences in, right? Which include the product proposition as well. So being the number one on the net promoter score, being very high on the share of voice, right, digitally. And then finally, I would say revenue growth and real revenue growth, not attributed, but how much of revenue are you bringing in? In addition, I think the one other metric that I, at this stage, and even in, that I also believe in is the total number of interactions with the customer. So the total number of interactions, promoter score, revenue.
Yeah. So that last one, is that kind of the same like frequency? How many interactions you have, like as an indication of how active you are in the daily life of a person?
Yeah, I mean, I think the industry still measures by 3-month active. I think it is time that banks start thinking like DAU and daily active users and frequency of use.
Yeah, makes sense. Interesting enough, you're not mentioning anything about cost saving. Maybe that's secondary. But so net promoter score, revenue growth. I would say they're all...
I mean, I think I said those are priority.
Yeah.
Right. Again, it depends on context. If you're in a high cost to income ratio country, right? There are places running at 80% cost to income.
Yeah.
Right. Obviously, and if your processes are not optimized, I think it's an extremely good measure. So, I mean, in my previous roles, I have looked at that quite extensively. The only way to bank, a lot of the underbanked is through digital. Right. However, I think it requires a whole of the nation approach to do that. I think if you look at a lot of the examples from, the Latin America, from Africa, etc., right? Every time it is driven purely by individual players, I think the scalability of that goes for a toss. Right. So I think the core enabler for that is digital identity, right, and data portability. Right. And then obviously, once you have digital identity and easy way to access this, probably then government subsidies linked to this digital identity, then you are talking about financial inclusion. Sorry, one more point around payment addressing. So you take digital identity, payment addressing, potentially to do phone numbers, etc. And then finally, usage beyond banking, right, which kind of creates an ecosystem where it makes possible for financial inclusion at a large scale. So I think wherever these components would exist, I think it's extremely scalable, right? Beyond that, I think we all continue, various financial institutes continue to do their part, right? However, the scalability of that, in my mind, is questionable.
Yeah. Do I understand you correctly? Is that something where you say, like, we have to also partly wait on the government or other third-party dependencies before we can really scale this?
Yeah, so I think it's not just, I think the whole of the ecosystem approach, right? So whether the government leads it or whether we say, various entities come together so that there is potential data sharing in a compliant manner between the organizations to make this happen. Right, so I see a lot of those seeds in Vietnam already, and it's quite exciting because I think that data sharing can enable us to reach a lot more customers. In the case of, let's say, Singapore, Thailand, India, I think obviously the stack is much more developed, driven by the government. Yeah. And by the way, here there are a lot of moments, right? I think there's a digital identity, the identity cards being replaced. I think there is some talk about national databases happening. So I think once those enablers are there, you'll see a hockey stick growth.
This is quite a significant effort, I would say, in how do you attract talent, how do you retain talent? Talent is scarce. Can you maybe elaborate a little bit on your formula, on how you do it?
I think it is, the right people attract the right people, right?
Good one.
So
yes.
I think I think bank is tough, right? I think you are always, balancing the needs of the very important needs of all the compliance things that we have to do, because that's who we are. If we screw them up, we don't have the right to be a bank, right? How do we balance those with the kind of customer speed and agility that we are talking about? So I think people, who come and succeed are the ones who can bridge this gap. From my point of view, I think it is about first of all, getting seed teams of really, really good people who attract the right people.
Yeah.
And secondly, making their lives as easy as possible within the context of a regulated industry. At the bank-wide level, I think it helps if your bank's motto and vision is change banking, change lives. I think if you want to attract the younger developers, etc., you need to have a vision. And I think that's that vision of doing the right thing, getting whatever we are doing is for the customer. I think that's extremely important to have and retain the right people. So two elements, right? One is where the customers are, where they are doing their day-to-day life and their business. How do we work with such partners? And we are not obsessed of owning each and every touch point with the customers. Our customers' lives are complex. They will work with various, service providers. We want to make their life simpler. So whether it's a home buying journey, right, or whether it's accounting, we want to be sure that we are plugged in with the right partners. But at the same time, I think we actually probably have a very, very high frequency of interactions, right? The question is that how do we increase, the value to our customers, right, in those touch points by bringing services from our other partners, right? So, for example, if I've been, shopping at a certain place, and we know that I can get you 10% off, bank if you just do some things, right? I want to do that. I want to leverage my ecosystem and my partnerships to make the day-to-day lives of my customers better. So it cuts both ways. It's definitely, as we are not just a banking as a service provider, right? We want to own the relationship with the customer, hence the investments on data, hence the promise of personalization. We want to be the a high frequency touch point. At the same time, not afraid of losing that one or two interactions because that's where our customers are. Most banks or most customers, also have significant e-commerce, social commerce, etc. Operations, right? So they need to have the data from all of these points, right? And at the end of the day, what we've noticed, when we've looked at this, I've looked at this over the last few years, I think even to say credit, every fintech will come and promise that because I own the POS, I will give you the best credit. And the reality is that actually the bank still sees those the data points, right? The bank also sees what's happening on other channels, right? So I think how does the bank create those experiences that our offering is always superior because of our 360 view of the customer. In fact, one of the previous, at Techcombank, we are integrating with the, various accounting software providers, right? Because I think that's a win-win solution. I previously have done solutions where we have dashboards integrated within the dashboard of the banking services, which tell you what's happening on MailChimp, what's happening on, various, your Google Analytics, etc., to give you a 360 view of your business. So, creating those beyond banking dashboards could be our value play as well. So I think it's a battle.
Hey, it's about data, digital/platform, and then talent, and make sure that you kind of bring those three ingredients together. I think very specifically on the data and on the platform side, to kind of envision a model where the bank is operating as a hub. You kind of bring all the different ingredients that help people with their financial life. You bring it together, either from products and services that are inside the bank, but also you can integrate with third-party fintech players or other aspects of like travel, transportation, loyalty, retailers, and you kind of bring it all together in your platform hub. And by doing so, the platform can really orchestrate the daily financial life of your customers. And maybe as a big bonus, of course, you have all the data that comes with these interactions, and you can utilize that data to protect your customers, to give them new insights, but also down the road, maybe to do additional cross and upsell, which is, I guess, a very powerful concept. On the execution model, Techcom is, I think, a bank that basically says we want to kind of control our digital future ourselves. So also the skills required, we're going to do it in-house. So building a strong user experience design competence center, but also a strong technology leadership team and the associated engineering power. It's one way of doing it, but in this case, Techcombank really decides to kind of go all in and driving that on their own. to basically build a very strong digital muscle from an execution point of view. I think it was really inspiring. On behalf of the total audience, Pranav, and also the Techcombank team, it's an honor to be working with you. Let's continue to innovate together into the future. And I think everything we said about the potential in Vietnam, but also the potential we have together to really impact daily lives, I think we're going to double sign for that and we're going to go all in. So thank you very much.